I'm finishing off dinner, so I'll be off camera for a little bit.
All right, good evening, 7 p.m. And we have a quorum, so I guess we can begin. Not sure if the other three outstanding commissions will be able to join or not, but if so, they can be a bit late. So welcome. Tonight is the December 2025 meeting of ANC 1C for Adams Morgan. We have a relatively light agenda, so I'll try not to delay too much. Just quick call to order, introduction of commissioners. 1C1, let's start with you.
Thank you. Howard Bollicky, 1C01, which is the southwest corner of Adams Morgan, the Hilton over to 18th Street, the little commercial area down there, and then the residential in between. Thanks.
1CO3 would be next, I guess. So, yeah, Peter Wood, 1CO3, pretty much in the middle. 18th to 19th, Biltmore to Wyoming. Commissioner Olson, you're next. Yeah.
Scott Olson, 1CO5, which is the Safeway to the rear entrance of the zoo, the middle part of Lanier Heights. Over to Commissioner Laughlin.
Hi, Commissioner Lawthorne, 1CO6, the other end of Lanier from the Safeway to 16th Street.
David Fucillo, ANC 1C08, that is 16th Street to roughly Ontario and Calorama to Florida. I will pass it along to Commissioner Swanson Palmer.
Thank you. I'm right next to Commissioner Pachilla's district, where the Harris Tier is and H.G. Cook Elementary. And I think that's everyone.
Please so. So, first item, consideration and approval of tonight's agenda. I don't think that there are any proposed late agenda items. If anyone has one, this would be the time to bring it up. All right, so if there's no other concerns, tonight's agenda will be approved. Going once, twice. All right, we have a final agenda for tonight. It's a pretty simple one, so I think most of this meeting, I don't expect any votes actually, but I think that a bit of discussion potentially from some attendees. So next, commissioner announcements, and if you're chair of a committee, no, excuse me, officer reports. Chair report. I think the only thing, our December 1st is the deadline for the annual reports. That was 2 days ago. It's mostly on me. It's mostly done. Just have to check the financial numbers. Also, OANC has said in the past, in other words, or phrased it differently, but basically that there's no real consequences for being late. So it's done. We'll get it done soon. I think probably with Commissioner Olson, I'll just send you what I've put together from the QFRs online just to make sure that it didn't get it wrong because some of the numbers are weird. I think it's because of stuff you'll discuss tonight, which is essentially an outstanding grant and also waiting for payments. But we can discuss that separately. That's the main chair thing. Secretary's report, all you.
Thank you. As always, office hours tomorrow from 5 to 6 p.m. and they'll continue to be on Thursdays at the line. And then I was looking at our calendar, our committee calendar, and I know that PSE falls on Christmas Eve. So I wasn't sure if we were not having that meeting or, okay, great, cool. I'll pull her down. All right, and those are my updates. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Olson, Treasurer's report.
Yeah, the treasurer reports are linked in the agenda as always. Current bank balance is $16,076, almost exactly the same as last month. We haven't had any expenses. I'm asking for approval tonight of the fiscal year 2025 Q4 quarterly financial report. This is July, August, and September of this year. Right now, we're about to close the first quarter of 2026. I'm late in submitting this, but here we are.
Okay.
I'm also asking the Platform of Hope to begin closing out its grant. It's been the 60 days or so forth that we start to have to submit paperwork to OANC about that grant, which we dispersed last month. Yeah, or in October, actually. That's all for me.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Any questions on Treasurer's report, commissioners? All right, so commissioner announcements, if you're the chair of a committee, anything relevant to the committee for this month as well. How about we go reverse order? Commissioner Swanson Palmer, start with you.
Thank you. I think the only update I have is that I think I talked about this last time, had a walkthrough of 1CO9 with Councilmember Nadeau's staff and some folks from DPW and the Department of Buildings, which resulted in council staff contacting the Department of Public Works in order to get a public litter can installed on Euclid Street. So we've had a couple of requests for that put through 311. I think most of the commissioners here know that usually they'll spit back out like a 297-day waiting period. But hopefully that will be shorter because we have some folks in the council office asking them to do that. We've also requested rat abatement and removal on the block of 2500 Mozart Place Northwest, and then DGS is working to patch the hole in the wall behind HD Cook. So really exciting stuff. And thank you to Estelle and Tanya and Eliza Roche for making that stuff happen. And I guess reverse order, that's you, Commissioner Pachillo.
Things are relatively light. I unfortunately couldn't make the Champlain substation CAG meeting yesterday, so I've got an email out to them to get an update, just see where things are at, given all the work that's going on, and of course the disruption to that part of Adams Morgan. So hopefully going to hear back on that sooner than later. Other than that, I will be unfortunately unable to attend office hours because I will be judging the ugly sweater contest. So that will be a good time if you all want to, if anybody wants to swing out for that. It should be a good time. It's going to be over at Rivers Union, I believe, and so should be fun. I will turn it over to Commissioner Laughlin.
Sorry, I have a machine running behind me, so I turned it off. So no big updates for the SMD for 1CO6. I will remind folks that DDOT is taking comments up to December 5th on the extension of the priority bus lanes that are going to go over into Mount Pleasant and over into Columbia Heights. The main specific, more direct impact it could have on 1C and particularly 1CO6 is that there's a proposal to turn to create a roundabout at where the intersection of Argonne and Harvard, or what they also often call Little Harvard, and also a suggestion to do one-way traffic so that only traffic on Little or on that part of Harvard would be going westbound towards the zoo. So if you have comments on that, I really highly recommend to send those comments to DDOT. You can go to the website. I'll grab the link and put it in the chat to their survey. And once you submit comments, they'll add you to a email list so that when the next round of proposals or updates, you'll be on that list and you'll get that information. And I will be submitting comments that I've gotten from constituents and passing those along to Kevin Harrison as well. And then for PSD, I'm following up with Platform of Hope to get their updates for their grant. I am behind. I did finally get my knee surgery, so I'm hanging out at home. So if you want to hang out with me, you'll have to come to me. And that's all.
Commissioner Wilson.
I don't have any large updates. I'll just say that I delivered testimony on behalf of the committee commission for Councilmember Allen's question about streeteries. It was neat to see all the ANC representatives who were there were all on the same page about wanting the streetery program to continue, being displeased with how DDOT was conducting things, but also being open to tweaks and improvements. So it seems like that was a impactful hearing that is going to maybe cause some change. But as folks know, and if you've seen the news, how DDOT has actually taken that streetery system and is changing it right now. That's all I have.
All right, thanks. Commissioner Diamond, introduction, any announcements, things like that. Welcome. Glad you made it.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I was at the Wilson Building for the mayor's holiday reception. Got home just in time for this meeting. So 1CO4, which is basically Biltmore Street, Calvert, 19th, 20th, and Adams Mill. Welcome, everybody. Hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving. So a couple of updates. One, a few weeks ago, a giant massive tree fell down on the north side of Biltmore, like towards the Calorama Garden, and it took out a stop sign. And happened to be out of town when this happened, and I have sent three 311 requests to get the stop sign put back, as well as getting the sidewalk repaired because there's a big gap, which is worrisome now that there could be snow and leaves covering it. At today's event, I also ran into a moker who also had put in requests to get everything repaired, and my tickets keep getting closed out, and so do hers. So we're working on trying to get that repaired. I want to support what Commissioner Laughlin said about the bus priority project. There was an event last night for the overall bike plan in DC, and the DDOT is having ward by ward meetings, and there were not a lot of people from Adams Morgan at the event last night. So anyone who was concerned about wanting the bike lanes that are now in Adams Morgan to connect east and west through the city, it would be great to comment on that. And there is a proposal to add bike lanes to Massachusetts Ave, and you can see like the overall plan. So that would be great. The district seems to be doing a lot of long-term planning. There's the 2050 project, and I go to a lot of meetings and I get a lot of feedback and opinions from constituents, which I try to pass along, but firsthand feelings and opinions are always better. So that would be fantastic if people feel strongly about these projects. I find that when you go and talk in person, your feedback is really taken very well because I mentioned things like lack of curb access if you live in an apartment building and lack of priority apparently being given to people who are differently abled. And the person I talked to made a list of what I said. So I encourage everybody to take advantage of opportunities to give feedback. There also seems to be randomly a lot of dumping on Biltmore Street, like in front of condo buildings and in front of group houses, and it kind of makes the neighborhood unsightly. So I'm working with a moker to try and solve that problem. So if anyone has any suggestions, it would be great to pass them along to me. Um, and that's about all my updates. That's it.
All right, thanks. Glad you got to have a busy night tonight.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the Alcoholic Beverage Control and Public Safety Committee. We'll be meeting this month. It'll probably be short. I think we'll just have MPD. I think they're going to come. One of the officers was messaging me today saying he's either coming tonight or next week, and I think decided on next week. So besides that, there's not a lot of activity on the committee. We'd have to look deeper into the data, so to speak, but probably reflective of the difficult business climate in terms of businesses applying for new liquor licenses. We've mostly seen renewals. I could even look at the numbers from the past, whatever, 4 or 5 years that I've been commissioner. I think that the number of applications has probably dropped a bit. It'd be interesting to see that. But in any case, it's kind of tied to other things we've been talking about uh, on that committee, but also shifting to 1CO3 business. Streeteries are obviously something that affects not just this SMD, but multiple districts, including the one I represent. Uh, I think that someone from Councilmember Nadeau's office will be here to address some of that, but in any case, it seems to be sort of still a work in progress, which is good and also unclear what that means. So hopefully we'll get more clarity as that moves forward. Besides that, Colorado Park, Mariposa Garden, Winter Eye, there's a lot of volunteers. It's kind of grown, and some college students and their college journalists have tried to pick up on that. So it's nice to see community events like that. There's a few different spots in the neighborhood that are gardens or something related that neighbors have been contributing to. So that is a nice bright spot in what has been a checkered year, right? And with that, I'll shift it to Commissioner Balke. All you.
Thank you so much. And I'll be brief because things have been pretty quiet in 1C01 compared to a lot of other parts of the neighborhood in the city. So we are awaiting the DDOT traffic study on 19th Street. That's underway right now. We're still hoping to get Carroll and Lorente Park transferred over from DDOT to Parks and Recreation. and we're just dealing with other, hyper local things like trying to get all the leaves picked up. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And now we can shift to public announcements. So if you're here uh, as a general constituent or representing some sort of governmental entity, please raise your hands. Get to you in the order they're received. It looks like David Menny is first from Councilmember Brandon Doe's office, representing Ward 1. Welcome, David. How are you doing? We cannot hear you if you're
Hey
speaking.
everyone. They
Oh,
had
there
to
we go.
move me
Yeah,
in as a
you're
panelist.
good.
Okay. Hi all. It is good to see some old and new faces. It's been a minute since I've been to a 1C meeting, I think, so it's nice to be here. For those I haven't met, my name is David Menny. I'm Councilmember Nadeau's Legislative Director and Deputy Chief of Staff. If you see me looking over in this direction, it's because I have a very needy cat who's been left alone all day. So that's just what's going on down there. Um, but I will, Commissioner Chairwood, I know you mentioned me talking about the update on streeteries. I will close on that after I get to some of our regular updates. So I'll go through those quickly. Um, Starting with Department of Public Works, fall leaf collection is in progress and continues. The first pass in section C began on Monday, and then first pass in section D is anticipated to begin December 15th. You can visit dpw.dc.gov/leaf to find where in the collection schedule you are, and they have some instructions there as well. Also, please feel free to reach out to our office if you notice some issues with collections. There are bumps and hiccups that we've been working out since it's a pretty complex process, especially in denser parts of the district. I will also mention that I am going a little off script here, but I believe it's next week or the week after we are planning an oversight roundtable for DPW that is centered on residential collection, street sweeping, a lot of those sort of essential services. It's going to be a limited witness list because we really want to dig into things with the agency. But very happy to get thoughts, potential questions for the agency. I know you all are very much on the ground on all of this. I'm especially excited to dig into street sweeping. If folks haven't seen the Public Works budget report from this year or this fiscal year, we went into that quite a bit, and I think there's a lot of open and interesting questions on that. And I think we will also touch on some bulk pickup and illegal dumping enforcement as well, because that's all kind of in the mix. So I heard a couple related issues and a couple of your SMDs. I think that's all for DPW for now. Um, we will be having Councilmember Nadeau's office a utility fair on Wednesday, December 8th. That's going to be from noon to 3 in the afternoon at the Mount Pleasant Library. So we're bringing in staff from PEPCO, Department of Energy and Environment, Office of People's Counsel, to be there to answer constituent questions, address issues with utility bills, and try and work out some issues. I think done this a couple times before, and it's been very helpful for folks who have shown up. So if you're hearing from that or from community members on that particular issue, please send them our way on December 8th. And if you go to the council member's website, you can register to attend, although it's not required. Next, just some information on the emergency rental assistance rollout, which the council member was fairly public taking issue with how that happened from DHS. As this former human services chair, although didn't need that experience to pick up on, there have been clues over the last several months that the reopening of ERAP would probably go poorly, considering the changes that they were planning to make. But it seems like no amount of oversight could have prepared us for what happened that day. Residents waiting for hours, phone hotlines dropping immediately. Um, yeah. So I don't know if that's an reaction to me. Um, anyway, you know, we felt really strongly that those issues can and should have been foreseen, and DHS should never have forced residents to do that. Councilmember put out a statement on this, and I think we're working with Councilmember Fruman and his staff on follow-up oversight to that. Um, Next, quick update on the National Guard in DC. Court ruled last month that the federal occupation of the district is unlawful and unjust. Something that the council has been, speaking on for quite a while. The council member was very grateful for the AG for using the tools that he had to fight for DC residents on that. Council member also put out a statement somewhat relatedly on the shooting a few days ago of the two National Guard members. So I would direct people to that if they have some more questions. Finally, apologies, I'm jumping around a little bit. Um, just some comments on DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development. There was a hearing recently that Councilmember Robert White held on some legislation, including Councilmember Nadeau's bill on tenant buyouts. But at that, there was quite a bit of oversight of the agency because of reports that we've heard come out about pretty significant mismanagement of funds that are meant to go to housing affordability and housing production in the district. The first was reporting on what effectively is I believe, about a $30 million investment from that was funds from the federal government that went unused and had to be returned. Um, and then not too long later, it was also discovered that there was $1 million in home purchase assistance funds that also went unused. Um, so, we found it extremely concerning, continuing to work with that committee to see what needs to be changed there. But it's especially critical now that the market for construction has been so challenging that we should not be leaving money on the table like that. Um, okay, can bring up other stuff if there are questions that others have, but I will jump back to streeteries. So I will once again also say we have a statement up on the website going over in some more detail what happened this week. But I'll say briefly, yesterday at the legislative meeting, there are actually two pieces of emergency legislation passed related to streeteries. One was actually something the council has been, moving on for a while now, which is related to the ABCA regulations around it, which has not, I think, changed very considerably. And then the latter was emergency legislation that was spearheaded by Councilmember Allen after the roundtable, or as a follow-up to the roundtable that was mentioned. So that primarily, after communications with the agency, focused on two hurdles that we had heard at that roundtable were significant for businesses and their decision making. One was the per square foot permit cost. So the bill aligned that with what has existed for sidewalk cafes. And the second was around the inability to winterize or weatherize the space, whether that's canopy or especially the sort of side protection and allowing for at least like transparent plexiglass or something like that, which has existed in some other cities that have permanent programs as well. So it does not beyond what's specified in that emergency bill, change the permanent program that DDOT is still rolling out. But the focus was more specifically on what we saw as solvable issues. I say we also because this was co-introduced by Councilmember Nadeau and Councilmember McDuffie. A very central focus of our office, though, in that whole conversation at the roundtable and afterwards was also the sort of specific fate of the streetery pilot on 18th Street, which we felt was sort of obviously very tied in with the issues that were raised around the permanent regs, but also was its own beast because it is the only place where the infrastructure itself was funded, designed, and installed by the district. And we had learned that the plan was to completely remove all of that um, and restripe the road without the streeteries and retaining or adding back the central median. So the council member shared our concerns and especially, what we'd heard quite frequently from residents over the last several weeks in discussions with the DDOT director. Director Kirschbaum and her team committed to, while the infrastructure is still being removed, and people may be seeing that over the last couple of days, they're maintaining a curbside area of about 10 feet. It can be thought of as sort of continued public amenity space for sidewalk extensions, parklets, bike and scooter parking. And that also would be space to accommodate streeteries should businesses choose to have them. Um, if this sounds somewhat familiar, I don't know if or when this was presented to the ANC, but it's along the lines of what DDOT had proposed a few months ago, which was on the east side of the street, reducing the width from 16 feet to 10 feet, so that we could add back a lane for parking and loading and pickup and drop off next to that, which we did recognize as pretty important, and needed more space to accommodate that. So that lane of parking will be added back as well, as things are being readjusted. Um, and there will be a significant focus on flexible loading space, pickup and drop off, short-term parking. And we're looking forward to, this next modification, including, more improvements to pedestrian crossings, keeping the Capitol Bike Share Station, and continuing to allow for, the space that had been created over the last several years, to be maintained for continued community use while also, addressing those curbside issues. So, we know there's been a lot of change and a lot of back and forth with residents and with businesses and the community as a whole with kind of the fate of that small corridor there. So, any other modification to that is not something that um, we wanted to approach lightly, but the council member did feel very strongly that simple removal of what was there with no mind towards that community amenity space would be a very difficult thing to come back from. So looking forward to working with the agency, working with the ANC and the businesses and the bid. I think I saw Kristen on here on understanding the future of that space beyond what is there now. Um, and I think the timeline for the removal of the barriers and what people are seeing on the ground now, and also the restoration of or the curbside programming and the parking that had been noticed is still proceeding as normal. And we'll be sure to connect with you all on updates and collaboration on that. What I'll end with before I can open for questions or any other thoughts. Councilmember Nadeau moved a small amendment to that emergency from Councilmember Allen that I was talking about earlier, which directs resources that had already been established in the Plaza Act, which was passed last year and funded just recently, so that we actually have an avenue for more long-term planning on this corridor, considering the streetery pilot, the various pedestrian zone activations. So the Plaza Act has establishes a process for thinking through either sort of recurring, temporary, or permanent pedestrianization of public spaces in the districts. It's not saying that something needs to happen, but in talking with the agency, with the transportation committee team, we felt this was a good next step so that we're not stuck in this sort of perpetual pilot phase. I actually appreciated Commissioner Diamond elevating the fact that there's been a lot of long-term planning happening right now and directing people towards that. So glad to be able to report that we've established some more of that for Adams Morgan specifically. So stay tuned on that. And I will leave it there.
All right, thank you for all that. It looks like there's some questions that came in through the chat, but
Mhm.
before getting to those, commissioners, any questions, comments, items you want to address? All right, I have one, but I'll get through these first. You had mentioned, actually, sorry, Commissioner Balke, all you. You're muted.
My
There we go.
apologies.
All right.
Two questions, and I appreciate seeing Daniel again. I was on the commission back in 2022 and met you back then. And it's as a former Hill staffer, I'm always glad to see district staffers who stick around for a while and enhance their expertise. So it's I'm glad to see you
Appreciate that.
back. Thank you. Just two questions. The first one's pretty basic. I just want to make sure that in my own mind and for the audience, for that matter, what you were describing doing on the two blocks of 18th, if I understand it correctly, you're going to wind up with sort of three stripes on each side of the center. You're going to have the active traffic, you're going to
Mhm.
have parking, and then you're going to have this 10-foot stripe, which is the other things you've described. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I guess that's a decent way to explain it. And I saw in the comments a question about the graphic showing
Yeah.
proposed layout. Um, I have something but I want to make sure I run that by the agency to make sure it's like fully up to date to share. I mean, it's kind of a broad layout, so it's probably fine. But I think to be on the safe side and setting expectations, I can send that as a follow-up.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess you could think of it as similar to, some of the sidewalk expansions that we saw during the pandemic, where it's sort of a simpler, like, expansion of the public right of way from the sidewalk. One other real world example that we were looking at, there's a sort of protected bike lane involved, so that's a little bit different. But if anyone's been down on First Street Southeast in Navy Yard, the street was fairly wide and they changed the design. And so what was the sort of curb parking lane now is space for amenities, planters, bike parking. I think also Capital Bike Share Station is there. And then the parking is outside of that.
Yeah.
I think also for 18th Street, apologies for riffing a little bit, but because, commercial loading is such a key component of making 18th Street work, actually having that adjacent space for staging may be helpful. I know the freight management team at DDOT often talks with drivers and operators about like their particular needs. So I think that's something that they do. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's very helpful. The other question is a little different. I was able to watch part of the committee of the whole on Comcast here at home, and I saw the discussion of uh, Councilmember Pinto's amendment, which was adopted on a roll call vote. If you, I know you're not responsible for it. Could you explain her amendment? Because I never really heard her explain exactly what it did.
Yeah, no, I was interchanging with staff a fair bit on that because it was a little unexpected, but I know that her team has been trying to uh, work things out with the community in Georgetown, which is also kind of its own beast because of the old Georgetown board and various rules around that. So we had talked to them about several clarifications that were kind of specific to that situation, and that amendment sort of came out of their discussions. Um, we were a bit concerned with that amendment because essentially, briefly, what it does is requires any business with a streetery permit that has some sort of exemption to the regs or the design standards, say like I want this to be like a little bit larger in this direction, or be actually probably the most common would be like closer to an alley or something like that. That they would have to go back before the Public Space Committee every 2 years, or sort of resubmit to the Public Space Committee every 2 years. And we felt like that was maybe not in keeping with the spirit of that legislation, which was to remove barriers to getting those permits and getting that outdoor seating. So that was the rationale behind my boss voting no on that, along with several others. I mean, you may have seen that discussion.
Yeah.
It does turn out that that is, at least as far as we've been told after the fact, that is kind of how it works out anyway. Because there is also sort of an annual like reapplication just for the permit itself. And you know, DDOT says that is often an opportunity for them to go back to the Public Space Committee if there are issues. So while we don't feel it's ideal for there to be that sort of muddling in the bill, at the end of the day, it seems like it's not that significant of a change in operations. That said, this emergency and temporary legislation, it will need to have a follow-up permanent. So if we find that that's not quite the case, that is something that could be revisited.
Yeah. Thanks very much. That's very helpful. And Mr. Chair, I yield back. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Commissioners, any other questions, comments? So we had at least one of the chat questions addressed. Going back to what you were saying earlier, the DPW here,
Mhm.
do you have a specific, you said at one in the next 2 weeks. Do you remember the specific date, or was there a specific date?
I should have come with that date. I was just excited about it. I think it's been switching around a little bit. My colleague, Ariel Odura, is our committee director and also our lead on DPW. And I believe it is actually this coming Monday, the 8th.
Okay, thank you. We can always check the council calendar as well. Um, you answered the question about the graphics. There's nothing that's publicly available yet, but pending potentially. Uh, Public outreach, I mean, this is something as far as the 18th Street streeteries. I mean, is that something that came up in discussions with your office and other council members' offices, at least from the ANC perspective? Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, commissioners. No one's ever officially come to us to discuss even the pilot program, nothing from
Mhm.
DDOT. We've been completely left out. The only reason I know that the pilot program supposedly got paused is because of local media picking it up. I never had the mayor's office reach out to us at all. Is that, and I know that
For us too, I will say.
yeah, so Commissioner Olson and I both testified
Mhm.
to Councilmember Allen about how, among other ANCs, we were mostly left out of this. So I imagine it's on the radar. Is that something that kind of came into discussion, shaping this emergency legislation, or kind of next steps in terms of how the 18th Street or beyond might get repurposed,
Mhm.
how the community, whether bids or ANCs or other entities might be involved?
Yeah, that's a question for me.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, no, I think you really hit on something there, which was that um, like being candid about it, a lot of this has felt like muddling through, which I think is unfair to the ANC, unfair to the businesses, frankly. Um, and so that was to your point, part of the motivation from the council member is a real lack of engagement on what the various futures were going to be. We thought it was particularly salient that the ANC had not really been engaged at many of the steps in this process, and that's something that we're hoping to correct here. I think that also informed the amendment that she moved, sort of specifically naming 18th Street in the Plaza Act as one of the sort of candidate corridors to really sort of bring those engagement resources to bear in a more holistic way, in an actually like properly resourced way. Um, I'll stop there before I ramble, but were there other parts of your question?
That's helpful. Thanks.
Okay.
And completely shifting gears.
Uh,
311 for, oh, sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, just real quickly, I just have a lot of concerns about the whole process with the
Mhm.
streeteries, the pilot program, the breaking down of it, because unlike Georgetown, there are very different feelings about streeteries in Adams Morgan, and there are people on both sides of the issue, and I think the ANC is a tool to build consensus among all of our constituents, but when we're not getting information, we can't build consensus and people don't feel heard and people get very angry and upset. So I hope that going forward, we'll just be more involved in the process because 18th Street is like an anchor of 1C, and to feel like we're completely left out of the planning is not a good feeling.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I think part of our sentiment too is like, and Adams Morgan has been this way a long time, is always like willing to be in the forefront of things, willing to try new things. And we really felt like in that particular moment, as people were sort of finding out that things were being dismantled, we didn't want Adams Morgan to be basically like punished for being willing to participate in a pilot. Like that is something that should be sort of rewarded and engaged with and followed up on, and we didn't feel like that was happening. So
And like very quickly on that note, the businesses that participated in the pilot program essentially had to take a kind of significant financial loss because they had to throw away their stuff. Has that been addressed by council members at all? Or is that something they're just going to have to kind of bite in their expenses?
yeah, I mean, as far as the costs that they had to incur, no. And I mean, for those that don't know, fundamental to emergency legislation is it can't have a fiscal impact. So we're limited in what we can do there. Um, so in this particular moment, we were looking at how we can like bend that curve and reduce costs moving forward. Um, I think there had been proposals to have some more support on design or can build out that's like centralized in DC government. Had some interesting conversations with agency staff on that. And a lot of that just didn't get off the ground. I mean, it's a challenging budget environment, can be acknowledged. But that is something that we're interested in exploring more.
All right, that's good to know. Completely changing topics, really, but just to conclude.
We can always change back. I'm
Uh,
ready.
I think this will be it, if I'm not mistaken. 311 requests for bulk trash. If those aren't, I've heard this from other people too.
Mhm.
If 311's not working well or they're just ignoring entirely,
Mhm.
what's the best approach, Who should we turn to
Um,
alert of that?
well, I mean, there's the sort of immediate answer to that, which is you can reach out to Estelle and Eliza Roche on our
Right.
constituent services team. And now is a particularly timely moment. And you can also connect with myself or Ariel to, help inform the oversight we're doing with DPW on that. So, the more anecdata we have, the better on that, I think.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anything else, commissioners? Appreciate all of that. I know it's been a busy weekish plus for you, so it's always helpful to get that transparency, especially on the issues where it's not been as transparent. Not for necessarily fault of your office, but for the agencies that we appreciate that you get to take the chance to talk to us.
Yeah. No, we've been happy that DDOT has, come to and stayed at the table here. And speaking personally, I would like for that table to be, as sort of was mentioned, like the ANC as a venue for talking through this a little more transparently.
Appreciate that. Well, have a good night. Thanks for
All
coming.
right. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you all.
It looks like next hand has been waiting very patiently. Kristen Barden from the Adams Morgan Partnership and Business Improvement District. Welcome, Kristen. How are you doing?
Okay, great.
What's yours?
Don't know why the video is not working. Um,
Okay.
well, anyway, I'm here. That's weird. Let me just see.
Up to you. Either way.
Yeah, let me see if I can get it to work. There it goes. All right, great. I have a new laptop, and so it's still getting used to everything. Um, so yeah, let me talk a little bit about our event tomorrow, and then I'd like to talk a little bit about Streeteries and the redesign, the proposed redesign of 18th Street. So first of all, we have our annual holiday tree lighting tomorrow evening in the plaza in front of Truist Bank. It starts around 5:30 and we'll go till about 7. We're going to have live music from Gotcha Covered. They were one of the bands that performed at Porch Fest. They'll be playing some holiday tunes. And we're going to have an ugly sweater contest that David mentioned. There'll also be hot chocolate samples from Compass Coffee. And the Grinch is going to be there for photos and other mayhem. And we also something else I'm missing. Oh, the ugly sweater contest. The winner will receive a $100 gift card to the Adams Morgan business of their choice. So that's kind of a nice prize. And then immediately following the tree lighting, Honey Cake is going to do an after party at Lamont Royale, right next door to the tree lighting. And so that should be super fun at Lamont Royale. And if you haven't seen Honey Cake, it's a really cool interactive DJ experience. And then starting around 7, so the after party at Lamont Royale is at 7, and then Mary Center is doing an event at Roofers Union that David Fucillo mentioned that also has an ugly sweater contest I think that starts around 7. So anyhow, come to our event, come to Lamont Royale, and go to Roofers Union. So you have a lot of options tomorrow night, and it all should be really fun. Oh, we're gonna have snow too. We're gonna have fake snow. That's what I forgot. We're gonna have fake snow for the tree lighting, so that'll be fun. Yeah, and so that's our last event until probably date nights in February. So but it should be a lot of fun tomorrow night. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the Streeteries because there's a lot of misunderstandings. So, as David Meny mentioned, this was a pilot project, right? With DDOT. So it's a DDOT asset, right? DDOT owned this, the platforms, the railings, the awnings, all of it, right? So, the businesses, when we polled them this summer, knowing what the fees were going to be to continue to participate, they were all like, yep, no, it's too expensive. And even at $15 a square foot, which is, the new proposed, one of the permits, even that's too much, right? Like, because it's not just $15 a square foot, like the sidewalk cafes, it's like the annual permit fee, the Jersey barrier rental, if you're going to run electric out there, you have to have, the conduit, like it's a lot of stuff. So, we were guesstimating that for each business to continue to have a streetery and pay for it, it's about $15,000 a year. And they were all like, no, we can't afford this. It's too much. So, even with the changes that were passed in the emergency legislation yesterday, it's still too much. Like, it just doesn't make business sense. So that's why, the pilot project is ending and DDOT is taking back those materials. So I wanted to make sure people understood that. But then the council members' proposal to use the curb lane as, empty space, basically, with then a parking lane next to it, and then 2 travel lanes, and then a parking lane on the west side, doesn't work for us. And that needs a lot more discussion. So that's you can't just, redesign a street, by saying so. Like it needs full vetting with the ANC, with the business owners, and this could take months and months, and we don't have months and months, right? So the streeteries are being removed today. DDOT's going to begin the restriping, next week, as soon as the streeteries are gone. So like, the time to have done this was months ago, right? Like it's kind of too late. So it's not okay to just decide to do this. And like somebody mentioned in the chat, this new proposed parking lane would cover up that bike lane. So the painted bike lane. So that's not okay either, So the plan has been to, as soon as the street areas were removed, to go back to the design that was there from 2012 to 2020. And that worked really well. Having the center painted median was a place where you could get around, traffic. It was a place that MPD parked, it's for visibility and for safety. That center median worked really well, and there's a reason why that design that came out of the 18th Street streetscape in 2011 and 2012. There's a reason why it lasted, as long as it did, right up until the pandemic in 2020. So, if we're going to redesign 18th Street again, that needs full vetting and full discussion with everybody, with all stakeholders. It just can't be like the council members, thing. So sorry, with all due respect, I mean, we all need to be involved. So that's not okay. And we're making that very clear that that's not okay. So I just wanted everybody to know our opinion on that.
Thank you for all that. On the latter note, as I think we've made clear, we're not particularly involved with a lot of the legislative happenings, so we're also kind of learning as things go, but appreciate the comments. And for the programming, hopefully tomorrow will go well and you get some much needed rest until the winter starts to thaw off, and then you can start with the spring programming, which we're always looking forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is, and David Many didn't mention this, I don't think, but tomorrow there's a hearing on Councilmember Nadeau's legislation about creating a standardization for street closures and what's required to safely close the street. And we are testifying at that hearing. So as is the president of Meridian Rapid Defense, which is the manufacturer of the street closure barriers that we bought and use. We'll be testifying at that hearing tomorrow, as will the president of Meridian. So that's I think a step in the right direction.
That's good to know. I'll pay attention and hopefully can get an update and wish you luck as well.
Yeah. Oh, and about the plaza legislation that Councilmember Nadeau introduced, as we learned in the 3 pedestrian zones that we did back in 2021 and 2022 with the Streets for the People grant money from the Office of Planning. What we learned from that experience, we did 3 of those on 3 different days. A couple of them were Saturdays, one was a Sunday. What we learned from that is that the street closure doesn't really work for the businesses unless there's a special event, right? I mean, Porch Fest, it brings thousands of people to the neighborhood, right? A street closure works when there's thousands of people coming. It doesn't work for the businesses. In fact, it costs them money if there's not thousands of people for a street closure. So, in terms of making 18th Street a pedestrian zone every weekend, that's not what the businesses are going to want. Doing a pedestrian zone on Friday and Saturday nights, maybe, we can talk about that. That might be something of interest, but doing 1 month weekend, pedestrian zone, that would kill the small businesses in Adams Morgan. It would kill them because it's not enough traffic to their businesses. So, and it creates some inconveniences, right? You can't get deliveries. You can't, your business is less accessible unless you have thousands of people in the street. So that needs to be a part of that conversation.
All right, thank you for those thoughts. Commissioners, any last questions, comments? Appreciate you being here. Have a good evening, Kristen.
Yeah, sure. All right, thanks.
It looks like there's one more hand up. There does not seem to be a name associated. So if you have your hand up, the floor is tentatively yours. Welcome. And thank you for your patience. You're on mute if you're trying to speak, and I do not have the ability to unmute you, so I have to ask you to do that yourself. All right. I'll give us a few more moments, but if we continue to get silence, I suppose we should move on. Okay, well, if you're able to connect
believe
there,
iPhone 2 was the one that put the comment, but
could be.
Sean
Yeah.
put into the
I'll
chat.
address that right now. That might be easier. There was one comment that was about I'll just read it verbatim. Was Councilmember Nadeau's representative basically saying DDOT is going ahead with street space changes despite the recent emergency legislation passing unanimously. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think that he's not here anymore. So it might be best just to direct that to either Councilmember Nadeau's office or maybe another council member's office, because I'm not sure. As we've kind of conveyed, we're still trying to figure out what's going on in some ways as well. And with emergency legislation, it can be hard to follow as well. So sorry, I don't have a clear answer for whoever posed that question. But if we heard anything, we can reach out offline. Well, out of the context of the meeting, online through email, and we can hopefully follow up. So moving on, the consent agenda for tonight has two items: minutes from last month and a quarterly financial report. Anyone have issues with it, or does anyone want to take an item off of the consent agenda to put on the regular agenda? If not, I will take that silence as approval to have the consent agenda passed. So both of those items pass. We'll post that and get those on the website and everything. I know OANC has been a bit more, I forget the adjective for stickler is, but they're being a stickler towards making sure that we get that to the second almost posted and emailed to them. So we'll do that. And if I'm slow to do so, please bother me, everyone. But I think I'll get it today or tomorrow. Beyond that, regular agenda, just one item, and I don't think we need to even take an action, but we can discuss it just out of courtesy. A notice of intent was recently submitted. This didn't come from any committees. This is just something that got emailed to us regarding a proposed safe route to school at Marie Reed. I know that, I forget if it was this specific commission, at least at multiple points in the previous multiple years, pedestrian safety related to schools in the area has been something that ANC 1C has discussed. So, in my mind, this is a welcome notice. But if anyone, commissioners or attendees, has any items they'd like to address with this, now would be the time. Like I was saying, I don't expect to take any action, but if anyone has any other thoughts, we can do so as well, or we can consider those. All right, anyone in attendance have any thoughts on this? Hopefully it'll be a push. I mean, I've been hearing from constituents, and I imagine others have, which is the timeless tale of trying to continuously improve pedestrian safety. There's always issues, some of them more grave than others. So hopefully a step in the right direction, especially when it comes to our schools. I mean, one of the other elementary schools in the area, or one of the other public schools in Adams Morgan, I should say, was recently reconstructed. So it's been a lot of people's minds. I know Commissioner Balak, you did a lot of outreach for that, as did past commissioners. So hopefully this will kind of add to that need, especially Adams Morgan is one of the denser neighborhoods that has multiple public schools. So this is hopefully important precedent. All right. Well, on that, I guess we're done with our general meetings for 2025. That went quick. uh, have a good evening. Thanks for being here, everyone. Meeting's adjourned, and we'll see you next week on the community meeting.